You have to have the ability to win their trust and to show them that there's a career path. And that's one of the reasons for leaders having a bigger vision, is because the bigger your vision, the more room you have for people to attain opportunities.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This is the show that gets you in front of your best audience and keeps you there. My name's Rick Nuske. I'm your host, and I would just like to take a second of pause to thank you for all of the support that the show is receiving, for without you, it just wouldn't be as special. I've seen some of the positive feedback, and it's just so inspiring, so motivating to have you supporting the show. So thank you very much for that support. Now, we have somebody very special lined up for you today. He is an author, an entrepreneur, and visionary real estate leader, Mr. Scott Agnew. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with everyone on your wonderful show.
Yes, thank you very much for joining me again. Look, you have done so much in the field of leadership, and we're going to be taking a deep dive into that in a moment. We're going to also talk about your book, A Long-Term Leader, The Hidden Secrets of the Power of Soft Skills to Go from CEO to Successful Business Owner. So there's a fair bit to unpack here. Now, you and I just briefly touched on the fact that this rabbit hole goes deep. So we're going to explore a number of different areas. But before we do any of that, Scott, where are you calling in from today?
I'm in Tempe, Arizona, in the United States.
Oh, wonderful. Now, last time I went through there, it was quite warm. What's the weather like this time of year?
Yes, it's quite warm. Actually, it's cool. It's actually cooled off, though. It's below 100 now today, so.
A balmy 95.
Yes.
So what do you love about the place?
Oh, Arizona is a very diverse state. You can go to the lake and fish, and you can, water ski and do all those kinds of things. You can go up to the mountains in the winter and snow ski.
Yep.
Or actually tomorrow I'm leaving for a trail ride. We're going. Group of my buddies and I are going on a trail ride, riding some horses. Nose to rear and pretending like we're real cowboys. So that's going to be too.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing. And this is what I think makes the My Future Business Show so much different to many other shows, is that we take a look behind the curtain of the business and we say, well, we know that fundamentally businesses don't change, but the people behind them do. And I think that's a really good segue into starting to talk about mindset, and as it applies to leadership. Now, you would obviously know a fair bit about the importance of mindset in the work that you do. How important actually is having a good mindset, or the right mindset?
Well, it's very important. And I mean, think about it this way. I mean, if you were talking to your children, would you want them to go for it, or would you just play status quo, right?
Yep.
If it was your own children. So think about mindset as what's possible, right? And that, I think, is extremely important. And to have big thoughts and to want to live a large life, and to really understand why you're doing it, and to get in touch with that, is very important in terms of really solidifying and galvanizing your mindset.
Yeah, you also obviously look after yourself, and I wonder the importance that you give to resting, recharging, recuperating, and stepping away from the business from time to time. Is that important as a leader?
Yes, in fact, I've been told at times that I need to work more and harder to have a balanced life. So,
yep.
So on that note, yes, it's very important to take care of yourself. It's very important to recharge. And I think, it's your vehicle, right? It's like you wouldn't, as Zig Ziglar said, you wouldn't smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol and not exercise and all that stuff. If it was the only vehicle you had. So
yes,
self, right?
Zig Ziglar. Wow, that's a classic name if I've ever heard a mentor. Now, tell me a little bit about mentorship and having those people around you when you were growing up. Did you have anybody special that you looked to outside of, the likes of Zig Ziglar?
Well, when I was growing up, I lost my father at a young age. And so I had, I had a few people in my life that kind of took me under their wing. And, you know, uh, mentorship has meant everything to me because I didn't really have a guide, a male guide, if you will.
Mm.
Uh, Mom was very strong and she did what she could, but I don't think there's any substitute. But when I look back on it, of course, wow, how resourceful did I become because I had to operate on my own wits a little bit, right? So,
Yeah, yep.
yeah. So
Tell,
there's a lot of, go ahead.
No, no, I was just going to say, look, yeah, I was going to take the conversation in another direction if we could. I often like talking about, going back in time a little bit and remembering the first time that we ever experienced being an entrepreneur. For me, it was I used to wash cars. It was one of the very first things I ever did, and I thought, wow, I've learned so much. Especially when you look back, do you have a memory like that?
Oh, yes. I was a paper boy. That's where I started out to go way back. But beyond that, I think the first real business I had was, cutting grass. In Arizona, I was a freshman in high school. I was a freshman in high school. It was 115 degrees out. I was from Indiana. I wasn't used to the heat, and not really thinking it through. I decided that the best thing I could do to raise, get money and have a decent time was to uh, cut grass. So I had several clients. I had 23 clients. I did 3 commercial projects and kind of turned it into a real business. So that was when I was
Yes.
15, 16 years old. So
So, and then beyond that, you've gone ahead and you've created another wonderful business around you, and you would have had to have taken some chances on yourself. Expose yourself to risk. How would you say for somebody who's coming up and thinking about doing a similar thing? What would you say to them about risk? Should they, embrace it? Should they worry about it? How did you manage it?
well, I think what you do is you kind of look at other people that have succeeded in what you want to do before. And if
Yep.
you want to take the risk out of it, you develop a understanding of maybe a model that you can follow, and you work on your skills. The more skill you have, the less risk there is.
Yes, absolutely. Now, before we get into, I guess, the core of the call, this wonderful book, tell us a little bit about your role as the CEO and operating partner at Keller Williams Realty. Could you share a little bit of, just for context?
Sure. I operate 2 separate franchises, one in Arizona, one in Utah. So physically, I'm in both states at the same time. And I also have the responsibility of developing and growing the Utah region, if you will, the entire state for additional franchises. And, that involves, a lot of training and coaching and things of that nature. So that's the scope of my responsibility.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing. Now, I know that in a role like that, there would be certainly leadership skills required and you would be exercising them daily. But there'd be a few people on the call today would love to learn from the ground up. Tell us a little bit about what your perception of leadership actually is.
Well, my perception of leadership is really about helping people think the way they need to think. Um, it's not about telling people what to think, like a lot of leaders do. It's about helping people work through their own thoughts. And the reason when you help people think the way they need to think, oftentimes that is followed by action. So people will do what they need to do. Uh, but the real cherry on top is to make sure it's for their reasons, not ours. And then you just have to match the right person with what you need them to do. They need to kind of love what you need them to do. And then for their reasons, they'll have a sense of natural commitment, natural enthusiasm, and just natural energy around what they're doing.
We touched on mindset a little earlier, Scott. I'm wondering, is leadership an inner game initially?
100%. I mean, I think leadership is such an inner game, and this is really what the focus is of the book. I mean, I tell some stories and examples, but the focus of the book is, I'm going to use a word. The inner game is to the battles that we fight mostly are within us. And so the inner game is about keeping ourselves in a place where we are okay with things, right? So, and I struggle with that as a young leader for sure. Hot to tell, and hot mess, and all that stuff. So
All that stuff. Now, I often think about when I hear leadership and the spiel that the leaders give them, and sometimes a leader will come into an organization, they don't actually even own an organization, then they're there to espouse the values and the mission and vision of the company. How
yeah.
important is it for them to be truly living and walking the walk for the businesses they work with?
Well, yeah, if that's not really the case, then it always sounds like rhetoric to your audience. And that, you and I know that we can both tell when somebody knows about something, but they don't actually know what it is. And so it's very important to have lived and walked your talk and gone through the struggles and challenges, so that when you're speaking, you're speaking not just from your head, but you're speaking and talking from your heart, because you've felt it, you've been there, and you understand at a deeper level. And when you communicate in a manner like that, the audience can feel it. And if you're really on and you're really in your authentic self, you're going to have an audience that's going to be captivated and listening to you. I'm not saying everybody's not always 100% listening, but at the same time, you've got to go in there and kind of just wear your heart on your sleeve, and you've got to be honest and truthful, and not just about what you want them to do, but about your own failures, your own struggles. That's where people learn. They learn a lot around what we had to overcome, or where we had to go in order to get to a place where we were actually given the honor of leading, right?
Yes, absolutely. Great feedback. Thank you very much, Scott. Now, I'm wondering, just quickly, who do you see as a good leader in industry nowadays? Are there any?
In the real estate industry, there are several good leaders. I think there are different levels of leaders. There are companies out there that are being led by leaders that aren't really leaders. They're basically Wall Street, they raise capital on Wall Street, as they understand that language. So they have a lot of money to throw at things. But as far as just a visionary, the guy that really, I think, leads the real estate industry is a guy named Gary Keller. He understands the real estate business at a very deep level, at a high level, and he's been able to really coach and consult the top agents in the industry for many, many years. Gary's a master at collaboration, and he's a master at extracting and getting granular with what the real issues are in a real estate agent's life, to build a life worth living, so to speak. Because real estate can be very demanding, a 24/7 kind of job if you're
Absolutely. Great feedback. Now, we touched on this earlier, Scott, but I'd like to take it a bit further in terms of being human and being vulnerable as a leader. Is that okay, regardless of the industry that you work in, do you think?
I do. I think it's okay, and I think it's not only okay, but I feel, my belief is that it actually helps you move along faster with the ability to influence or connect with people. Because people out in the business world are, they're, especially in today's environment, it's an uncertain world out there. And the more real you are, the more authentic you can show up, I think the more you ease the uncertainty. And when you're relatable, right? There's a calm that happens, and it's amazing. The more relatable you are, the more you learn as a leader. Jordan Peterson said this really well. He says that when you want to help somebody, he said, don't tell them what to do. What you really need to do is listen to them. And so that is I think, a key component in today's world about being real and authentic, and being actually interested in what others' thoughts, feelings, and beliefs are.
Jordan Peterson, there's another fantastic name. Absolutely loving this feedback. Thank you so very much. Now, when we look to engage a quote unquote leader, what are we looking for? Is it something that can be learned, or are we looking for natural born leaders? Are there two different breeds?
Well, I do believe there is a certain element of behavior out there that is naturally, oriented towards leadership for sure. You know, anybody in the call understands, behavior profiles typically, the more direct person is, and the more they do not really, they're not as sensitive, if you will, to other people's, opinions. Those are the types that tend to step into leadership much more easily, and they feel less fear around it. And there's other personality types that love being, supportive in the background, and there's others that, like to be the cross the T's and dot your I's person on a team, and then there's connectors out there that are fabulous at the sales process, but don't necessarily want to be responsible for success through other people. So it's a rare, I think it's a rare quality, but if you have that quality, then I think it's about developing that quality and learning the skills and the art of leadership.
I'm wondering if we can just explore leadership patterns. Are there commonalities between leaders that, there would be one thing that stands out that they all should have or all do have?
Yeah, I think one of the common things amongst leaders is they have a certain charisma with people, and they have the ability to paint a fairly clear vision. Where are we headed? What are we, why are we doing this? And what is it that we want to accomplish? What does it look like when we accomplish our mission, right? Um, I think, that's common amongst leaders. And unfortunately, leadership, uh, Rick, isn't necessarily good or bad. Leadership is, and but that it doesn't necessarily mean that you have huge integrity necessarily. But there are people that can lead other people because they're good at leadership. But they're two different things: being a good person who's a leader, and just being a leader who wants to get your own needs met. So they have the ability to influence and to persuade people for sure.
I love the call, Scott. I liked watching your video as well that introduces you on your website. And one of the things that I took away from that is the question about why leaders fail to leave a legacy. Why is that, do you think?
Well, because they're in, most, there's statistics out there around businesses, right? 50% of businesses fail in the first 3 years. 90% of the businesses out there, small businesses, entrepreneurial business, fail within the first 10, in the first 10 years. So that leaves about a 10% chance of success. And so if you approach people and situations, and if you're always manipulating and forcing people to do things, people will respond out of fear in the short term. And that's an approach that a lot of leaders, especially in a world where you're measured every quarter, right, on your results, and maybe you're responsible to shareholders, and you've got a lot of other pressures on you to just bang it away every 90 days. But I think one of the things that makes an effective long-term leader is to develop your people, and be patient, a little bit more patient with the process. And as long as you have the right talented people in place, it's just a matter of them learning the things that the role requires. Rather, you're not going to change them as a person, but you can develop their skills, and you can develop their ability to focus, and you can use some tools and those kind of things that are helpful. But if you're trying to build an organization, it really is going to depend on who you have in the organization. Dan Sullivan, who is the head of a company called Strategic Coach, wrote an amazing book with Ben Hardy called Who, Not How. And so when you get the right who's, sound like who, Bill, when you get the right who's, they'll figure out the how.
Yeah, I can tell that you've exposed yourself to some very intelligent people, some people that know what they're on about. Dan Sullivan's another name drop I absolutely love. I'd love to, if we could, talk about how leadership styles have changed over the years. And, you talked about controlling and dominating. And what is it now? Has it shifted at all, do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that enter into it, but I think we can all agree that the old school command and control type leadership it's old school. Um, that style was back in the more autocratic era. It was you could get away with it when there were less options for workers, for people that worked, and managers. Today, I mean, it's as simple. People can go to work anywhere. They can work for anybody, and sometimes they can just do it off a computer screen. So you have to have the ability to win their trust, and to show them that there's a career path, and you have to, and that's one of the reasons for leaders having a bigger vision, is because the bigger your vision, the more room you have for people to attain opportunities.
So tell us, who is the primary audience for your book? Who would be best reading this book?
It's so tempting to just say everyone, right? But that's not really true. It's those that are, see themselves as coaches, those that see themselves as manager leaders, CEOs who are struggling with attracting and keeping talent in their world. Anybody who wants to move from the corporate management slash leader world into the ownership world. How do you move? How do you become an owner rather than just a high level CEO that's on salary? So if you want freedom, if you want flexibility, you've got to be able to get leverage. And the way to get leverage is to succeed through others. And the way to succeed through others is to effectively lead them.
Great feedback. Absolutely loving the call. Now, I'm wondering if you could tell us the difference between hard and soft leadership skills.
Yeah. So the hard skills are about what to do. They're the what's. Set your goals, create a plan. Refine your tactics. Make sure you're focused on a primary objective. In my world, the objective is to help provide an environment where entrepreneurs can thrive, right? So that's my purpose, and it's a very powerful purpose. That's kind of the hard skill stuff. Your belief system, your mission, your vision, your values, your beliefs. Those are all stated, and those are kind of the what we're talking about. Another example of a hard skill would be, being able to, make sure you hold your people accountable. The soft skill would be how to do that in a way where the receiving, the receiver of accountability doesn't feel impugned or talked down to or feel less than. And when you really think about the soft skill of holding somebody accountable, it's quite an art, I believe. And it should be very energizing. I coached with a brilliant man by the name of Jay Abraham for a number of years.
Oh,
And Jay and I, he taught me something very important. He said, most of the time in any accountability session or goal setting or even job, performance evaluation, whatever it is, he says, most of the time, the employee or the manager, leader, whoever it is, leaves feeling worse than when they went into the meeting. And of course, if you're a long-term leader, your goal is to help people feel inspired and energized and have a renewed focus, right? So that's, in any business interaction you have, you've got to still hold them accountable. I'm not saying you have sympathy. I'm not saying you lose sight of what the mission is and their activities and all those kinds of things. But the soft skill is for them to leave that thinking, this guy really cares about me. He really wants me to succeed. He wants
yes.
me to do well. So.
That's a legendary name as well, Jay Abraham. If it's the same Jay Abraham I'm thinking of, that's incredible. So again,
Yeah,
if you're on this call and you're listening to this, this is the real deal. You know, we're not taking shortcuts with our education or what we've done to get to where we are. And how important do you think that is for a leader to have an ongoing, commitment to their own self growth and learning and education?
yeah, it's the most critical investment you can make, right? Is to continue to invest in yourself, create, and being able to embrace different perspectives, to become a more well-rounded leader. John Maxwell wrote a wonderful book called The 360-Degree Leader. The principles in that book are timeless, and it's one of the those are the kind of things that I'll get back into that book every once in a while and just remind myself, of what it's like to have a very well-rounded view and perspective on things, because because as a leader, you're putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So you have to make sure that, it's just like a soccer team or an NFL football team or whatever it is. You have to put the right players in the right position. So you have to really have a strong and accurate picture of, from all angles, from all views.
Absolutely sage advice. Thank you again. Now, we seem to be seeing across industry sectors globally a shift from, in-person type leadership where you have employees sitting directly in front of you. We touched on this a bit earlier, but how have you seen leaders continue to get the results that they're required to get if their teams are working remotely?
I'll tell you, it's tough. There is no substitute for, having somebody in front of you physically. I'll just say that. When you have the energy and the synergy with people together, it's just very powerful. And I would encourage anybody in leadership to definitely make a point of getting people together. It doesn't have to be as often as it used to. It doesn't have to be every day, but I believe it should be, there should be a cadence of human beings being together if possible. And if that's not possible, then on your Zoom call or on your digital call or whatever call you're on, you really have to have your act together. And you have to have visuals. I think you have to have some guest speakers come in and add detail to what you're trying to talk about. I think you really have to work super hard on a digital platform, because it's at that point it's really about your system. It's about lining things out easily, and it's about simplifying, because in a digital world, if you just start droning on as a leader and you start naming 50 things that they need to do, that your guys need to do, or your gals, you're going to confuse them. And
Yeah, absolutely.
much easier just to make it, get the one or two things that need to be done first, right? And so in a digital world, it's simplify, simplify, simplify.
So there's a lot of senses that get shut off from a digital space. You can't feel the room. Do you believe in that intuitive leader, that ability to feel what's happening in a meeting?
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of, I think, what makes, the leader more long term, when he's in tune. You had a guest speaker who talked about super feelers. She was amazing. She was a great person on. I can't remember her name. You probably know it, but it's being empathetic and being able to feel the energy from the crowd or from your people, uh, speaks way more volume than what their words are. This is where it gets a little bit lost in translation in the digital world, because in the digital world you're operating a lot on words. In the real world, you're operating on much more information. You've got tonality, you've got body language, you've got facial expressions. There's a lot more that you can read from people when you're with them physically.
Yeah, thank you very much for the feedback. And I wonder, what was I guess, the reasoning or the genesis for writing the book? And when did you know you were going to pick up that pen and put it to paper, as it were?
Well, you know, I joined a group called the Genius Network, and I thought I was pretty hot stuff, and I joined this group, and there were all these amazing people, incredibly intelligent, incredibly heartfelt people led by a man who I greatly respect by the name of Joe Polish. And Joe's network in that group, it seemed as though everyone had a very defined, purpose and a very defined mission. And this group is so heartfelt that these brilliant, successful, wealthy, all these things, and yet their focus is on how can you help, bring other people up with you? How can you inspire others? How can you educate? And how can you educate them to a point where they get a sense of calm and certainty. And one of the commonalities in this group was everybody had written a book. And it was through the coaching and through the environment of Joe Polish's Genius Network that I made the decision to kind of take what I knew in my life and put it to paper so that so that other people could follow in me, maybe saving them a little heartache, making their job more efficient, making their career more lucrative, making their businesses more successful.
Did it take you a long time to write, and when did you know it was finished?
It didn't take me a long time to write it. I think I dictated it in probably 60 days. And then, boy, what a great question, Rick, that what you just said. When did I know it was finished? It's not finished. It's never finished. No matter, I mean, it was 3 inches thick. And then, with editing and just making sure there was a lot of meat in the book, we whittled it down and tried to just make it more succinct and just more to the point. So yes, I mean, there's probably another book on, coming, because the one that, you just can never write enough, there's always more.
I reckon there is definitely a book in you or two left, because, just the way you've spoken, the things that you've shared with us on the show, I cannot tell you enough how appreciative I am, as well as our audience are, for you taking the time to do that. Now that we're at the pointy end of the call, I'm wondering, where can people buy the book, and where can they find out more about you, and where can they connect with you?
Sure. It's longtermleader.com. It's on Amazon. It's easy to find. I've got it in hardback and paperback. There's a little bonus, the 10 mistakes leaders make. There's a cool little quip in there about, how you can really fine tune and hone your communication skills to connect with people at a much safer and deeper level. And I think that's where you start. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can do through get a hold of me through my email, scott@kw.com, and I can give you a link or have a brief chat and see if there's any way I can serve you. If there is, I'm available to do that. It takes a little bit of, for me to make sure that it's a good fit. So that's super important.
Absolutely. And to further that, Scott, we're obviously going to be making sure that the links back to all of your wonderful work and your book are available through the longtermleader.com website, which I love that domain name. And if you're on this call today, you're looking to learn more about leadership, you know where to go right now, longtermleader.com. Reach out to Scott and make sure you get a copy of his book. And with all that being said, Scott, what a great call. Thank you so very much for joining me on the My Future Business Show today.
Thank you, Rick. You're a very skilled interviewer, and I appreciate your professionalism. And thank you very much. It's an honor to, if I can be of service to anybody. So thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.